This is ResourceCast, a podcast on the natural resource industry. Here, you can listen to the latest on how mining, energy, water, and other natural resources-based industries are changing around the world. We discuss how, from being the most hated and despised extractive industries, a new mindset is changing the face of the resource industry. How are they becoming more responsive to the needs of the people? Hi everyone, I am Hari Tulsidas, your host for one of the most crucial podcasts you are possibly going to get addicted. Every week, we bring you a new facet of the resource industry: the mining, oil and gas, forest, water, land, food production, and many others. So, let us get started. Welcome to a new year and welcome to a new decade. I hope you had a very good 2019 and I hope you will have a very good 2020 as well. This is also the start of a new decade, so let us hope that we will have a number of exciting things lined up for the future. This is the first episode of ResourceCast. In this episode, I will try to have a recap of what we have discussed in our very first introductory episode. And then we will look into how ResourceCast will be structured in the future episodes. We will discuss something from 30,000 feet. That will be the overview of natural resource management principles, which ResourceCast will be putting forward. And then we will conclude with few words on what is going to happen in the next episodes. Going back to the introductory episode, and I hope you can go back and listen to that if you wish. In this episode, I had mentioned what natural resources mean to us. So basically, people have sometimes false impression that natural resources is confined only to minerals and petroleum and maybe renewable energy. But I have mentioned that what we take as natural resources will be all raw materials, including primary minerals and secondary raw materials which are coming out of the primary minerals, and energy. And along with that, we will be also considering essential resources like forest, water, and land. Or put together all this, raw materials, energy, and the essential or critical resources like water, food, land, etc., is our natural resource base. In the future episodes, we will also talk about a concept called the natural capital, but it is enough that at the moment we think that natural resources are the sum total of the resources that is provided by this planet for the productive utilization of the human society. I had also mentioned why natural resources are important to our society and why we should not be disregarding it at any point. Natural resources provide $20 trillion GDP per annum. So that is about 20% of the global GDP, or about 1/5 of our economy, global economy. Natural resources are the building blocks and the backbone of the economy. Yet, this industry has earned a very bad name. Why is it so? There are so many externalities like carbon footprint, waste, biodiversity impacts that are caused by the production and the utilization of natural resources, especially minerals, petroleum. Even timber from forest. So basically, these industries are seen as extractive, kind of a drain industry that sucks up the life out of the earth and leave nothing behind. So people don't have a very positive image of people working in this natural resource area. And many of these problems, as I've told in the introductory episode, stems from a very critical mindset of this industry. Whether it is minerals or mining, petroleum or forestry, we have a very peculiar mindset, which is based on short-termism. What is our immediate profits? And what we can expect in this quarter and then in the next quarter. That is all the companies and the institutions which are involved in the natural resources largely spend their time thinking of. So they don't have a very long vision, and that is why many of the problems seen in this sector are very acute, and that has eventually led to leaving behind a very poor image about this industry. So can this industry do better? Of course, this is something this podcast will be discussing in our coming episodes. There are a number of ways in which this could be addressed. The short-term mindset could be reformed into looking into a long-term mindset. We can call it fixed mindset versus growth mindset. But this transformation is required for this industry. And this is very important because we cannot just close down this industry. We cannot just leave without natural resources being available for our day-to-day activities. The whole civilization is built on natural resources. So, for example, if you want to have a solution for climate change or a clutch of solution for climate change, it cannot be brought on the table without resources, without natural resources playing a big role in that. Yes, we can do better, and that is what we will be examining every week in the coming episodes of ResourceCast. ResourceCast is going to be about 30 minutes every week. In this 30 minutes, we will have a structure that will look into the natural resources by dissecting some of the important aspects of this industry. So for this to do is to have segments which will look at industry from different angles, different viewpoints, and different perspectives from different standpoints. We will have a segment on a view from 30,000 feet, which is basically putting forward a meta framework for us to understand the area of natural resource management in a better manner. We will have a segment on a focused topic, like we will take the issue of deforestation, or we will take the issue of waste from petroleum industry, or we will take the issue of technology in mining industry and have a deep analysis of what is going on in these areas. We will also have a segment called the direct hit, which is basically looking at the real life problems and trying to go into the roots of these problems, and into the roots of these issues, etc. We will have a segment called the weak link. That is basically a drill down into some of the urgent actions which are seen as very much required for the natural resource industry. For example, the problem of tailing storage for mining, or the problem of offshore spilling of the oil and gas industry, etc. are some of the weak links of this natural resource management industry. And we will have a drill down into this using a technique called 5 Ws, that is 5 times why. So that will go into the root of these issues. We will have a segment called the Leader Talks. We will try to bring some industry practitioners who have long experience and breadth of experience in various activities. And we will try to understand what they think about how natural resources management should be going into the future. We will have some perspectives from people in and around us. We welcome you to participate in this podcast as an active participant and then share your views with us so that this is not just a one-way conversation. So we can have two-way, multidimensional conversation run. We will also see that some of the perspectives that are coming up in the media, be it in the social media or in the news media, can also be brought in this section. We will have a segment on the assets. We will look into some of the essential strengths of the industry where some resources are already available, which could be taken and utilized to solve the day-to-day problems. We can also look into the assets which are available in other industries like the IT industry or the knowledge management industry, looking into artificial intelligence, look into deep technology development that is happening in nanotechnology, etc., and try to bring those as essential assets which can be put into action in resource management. Then we will have a segment on the hard problems. We will have a look at issues for which we don't have answers. As said, we will try to see whether this could inspire us to think in a different way. And finally, we will have a segment on stretching the boundaries. We will look into actions that could be associative and compounding so that it can bring out new business models in resource management. So these are the various ways in which we are going to tackle natural resource management in this podcast in the future episodes. So we'll have 9 segments. Not all the 9 segments should be necessarily there in a single episode, but each episode will be a mix of 2 or 3 of these segments. There will be, number 1 is view from 30,000 feet. 2 will be the cut, which is a focus topic. 3 will be directed, which will be a look into real-life problems. 4th segment will be the weakest link, which will be a drill down using some power tools to go into the roots of a problem. We will have a segment called the Leader Talks, which is learning from experience. The 6th segment will be the perspectives, which will be a participatory talk looking in and around us. We will have the 7th segment, which will be called the Assets, which looks into some of the essential resources that are available for the resource management industry. Segment 8 will be the hard problems. These are problems for which we don't have any answers yet. And segment 9 will be stretching the boundaries. We will be looking at some new ways of associative and compounding actions that can build new business models. So this is how ResourceCast will be structured in future. We will try to be as flexible as possible. It is going to be built as you go on machine. So we will try to be as creative as possible in the future. But broadly, the 9 segments which I have mentioned now will be the way in which this podcast will be structured. A view from 3,000 feet. In today's episode, we will look at some of the basic principles which are required to be applied whenever we are doing anything with natural resources. These principles are not, predetermined thinking, inflexible constructs which are given to constrain input of creative thinking in any form, but these are only guiding posts for us to easily navigate through the cesspools of resource management. I mentioned in the beginning that short-term thinking is the core issue with the current industry mindset. Because of that short-term thinking, we have issues of carbon emissions, we have issues of waste management, we have issues of various other externalities which are associated with the resources. Broadly, I am putting forward 12 fundamental principles of sustainable resource management in this episode. Some of these principles could seem to be overlapping each other. Principle 2 is integrated and indivisible management. All these reports, Our Common Future, Agenda 2030, all says that resource management or sustainable development cannot be seen in isolation. It is integrated and indivisible with all sectors of the society and economy. And this is one area we will be coming back later in the late episodes in greater detail. Principle 3 is to have a system view of resource management. System view is a science which has been around for many decades now, but it didn't find large applicability in the area of resource management. So natural resources serve as direct or functional inputs for socioeconomic systems of provision, either for production of another input or for production and consumption purposes, or for the built environment. System thinking, however, suggests research and practitioners should start from a broader nexus understanding that may well focus on specific critical interlinkages across selected layers. Systems approach to resource management is a science in itself, and we will be coming back on this frequently in our next episodes. Principle 4, social license to operate. So we are starting from the broad planet and now coming to the human society, where we should think that our activities should respect human rights and interests, cultures, customs, and values of the communities and employees who are affected by natural resources production and use. We will come to this important aspect again in our future episodes. Principle 5 is full life cycle view. Full life cycle view is an essential ingredient of system thinking, but I am taking it apart as a standalone principle because from an operational level, we seems to think that this is not something which is very important, or sometimes this gets diluted in the bigger picture. Life cycle analysis is a technique to assess environmental impacts associated with all stages of the product. We call it cradle to grave approach. From extraction of these materials to processing, manufacturing, distribution, use, repair, and maintenance, and the final disposal or recycling of the residues. That is what we say life cycle view or the cradle to grave view of resource management. Principle 6 is service orientation. Generally, resource management, especially minerals, petroleum, etc., they see the industry as a commodity industry. What they tend to produce are commodities, fungible products in the economic terms. We say today that industry doesn't exist to answer only to the shareholders by bringing in profits, but to serve the customers, employees, suppliers, communities, etc. So if the businesses or the industries exist to serve people, then the service orientation is paramount. So we have to change the resource industry from its current commodity mindset into a service-oriented mindset. Comprehensive recovery of resources is another principle number 7. This is a major topic, and we will come back to this topic in detail later. But in brief, comprehensive resource recovery means that we should disturb the land minimally and recover all possible values from that materials which we produce. And this is essentially something connected with conservation of our natural resources. Principle 8 is circularity. Circular economy is something which is getting important today, and it has got relationship with full life cycle view, with comprehensive resource recovery, but essentially means that disposal of anything is the last and least preferred option. Disposal of any material as waste, any energy as waste is the last and least preferred option. We should look into reuse, recycling, etc. of this material as much as possible. Principle 9 is also related to circularity, zero waste. Conservation of all resources, employing responsible production, consumption, reuse, recovery of all products, packaging, and materials, without burning them, without discharging them to land, water, or air that threaten the environment or human health. So this is a concept of zero waste. Principle 10 is also related to zero harm. Pursue continual improvement in health and safety performance with the ultimate goal of zero harm, continuous improving of environmental and safety principles. Principle 11 is hybridization. It stems from the Sustainable Development Goal 8.2, which calls for higher levels of economic productivity through diversification, technological upgrading, innovation, including focus on a high value add and labor intensive sectors. It looks into addictive way of developing our things, like resources add upon each other, and finally we come to a stage where we can easily say that the whole is greater than the sum of parts. We will talk about hybridization, which is an important topic in our future episode. Principle 12 is continuous strengthening of core competencies and capabilities. Integrated and indivisible resource management requires a cross-disciplinary approach to problem solving and working in diverse teams. So such an approach goes beyond what is available in traditional education and training, and this requires a continuous improvements of competencies and capabilities. So we have to see how that competencies and capabilities can be built into our industry ecosystems, our societies. SDG 12.8 says that by 2030, ensure that people everywhere have relevant information and awareness for sustainable development and lifestyles in harmony with nature. And that is the important concept of this principle. So these are the 12 principles which are important to sustainable development. Whenever we are talking about a topic in any of the segments which I have mentioned earlier, we will try to link it with these principles and see how the solutions which are offered satisfy some of these principles. That is all we have for today's episode. Keep looking for the next episode of ResourceCast, which will go into deeper detail on some of the issues I have mentioned today. Some of the power tools will be dissected in more detail, and we will drill down into some of the key aspects of natural resource industry. Once again, I wish you all a very happy new year and a very happy new decade, and hope to see you soon in the next episode. Goodbye.